Hello, and welcome to a tutorial of Accelerate's Cost tool. The tool supports a standardized approach to analyzing the cost of education interventions. It is specifically designed for tutoring programs, but these concepts may be applied to any education intervention. The approach is based on the ingredients method, the most rigorous approach to analyzing cost. The intended users of the tool are researchers and program providers. The primary consumers of the information generated by the tool are education decision makers, policymakers, and the providers themselves. This tool accompanies a report called Conducting Cost Analysis of Tutoring Interventions that can be found on Accelerate's website. A detailed guide is included in the report on pages 12 through 27. We recommend using the guide along with this tutorial when using the tool. This tutorial uses the Google Sheets version of the tool. There may be some minor differences between the Google Sheets and Excel versions. To ensure the best user experience, please choose the appropriate version of the tool for your project. There are 6 visible tabs that you can see along the bottom. We will explore each tab in detail during this tutorial. The first tab, called Guide, is informational and provides some of the same information included in this tutorial. The second tab, called Implementation Details, is where users input key information about the program being analyzed. The third tab, called Define and Price Ingredients, is where users input detailed information about all the costs associated with the program. And then there are 3 output tabs, which provide summary cost information, key cost metrics, and scenarios, all based on the user inputs. Throughout the tool, there are tooltips that can be seen by hovering over a cell that has a little black triangle in the upper right corner. These tooltips provide additional information about the cell, including any definitions or recommendations. There are also hidden tabs that are not immediately visible. These tabs include data and calculations that turn user inputs into data outputs. It is not necessary to view these tabs. If these tabs are edited, they may compromise the functionality of the tool. However, for those interested, it is possible to view these tabs in order to better understand how the tool works. Let's start with a review of the Guide tab. This tab includes information for how to fill out the tool. Note that it is not as detailed as the full report, which can be found on Accelerate's website, but it does provide some essential information and is an easy first place to reference if a question arises that is not covered by the tooltips within the tool. This tab has no user inputs. The Implementation Details tab is where the scope of the analysis is defined and includes user inputs that are essential for the calculation of summary cost and cost metrics. The information entered into the tool should be based on the particular implementation being analyzed. In this context, an implementation is characterized by 1. A clearly delineated number of schools using the same program model, 2. A specific count of students across those schools receiving services, and 3. A finite duration of the program. The cost analysis can include multiple schools or even districts, but it must focus on a particular program model, even if multiple models are used in the same district, school, or region. For example, a math program and a reading program would be 2 different models. The Implementation Details tab is broken into 4 sections. We will look at each section and discuss key fields in each section that are most important for conducting a cost analysis using the tool. Section 1 is called Program Details. This is where we define the implementation being analyzed. Location is where the implementation took place. There are 523 areas included in the dropdown. These are locations where the Bureau of Labor Statistics collects wage data. Location will be used to automatically populate local prices during the pricing phase of the analysis. Students served is one of the most important fields because it is used to calculate per pupil costs. Accelerate defines students served as any student who attended at least 1 session during the designated implementation. The cost tool collects 2 different types of dosage: scheduled dosage, the amount of tutoring an individual student would receive if they attended all tutoring sessions for a given program implementation, and actual dosage, the amount of tutoring participating students actually received on average. There are 3 fields used to calculate scheduled dosage. Duration is how long the program lasts in weeks. Sessions per week and minutes per session define how many minutes students receive each week of the program. These are combined into total dosage. Scheduled dosage is used to calculate cost efficiency. There is also a field for actual dosage. Actual dosage is used to calculate tutoring efficiency. If you are using the tool for program planning and do not have actual dosage, then leave this field blank. Both scheduled dosage and actual dosage are necessary to calculate cost effectiveness. There may be variation in program dosage due to scheduling idiosyncrasies across school sites. In these cases, input the most typical dosage. If there are large differences in dosage between the sites and the same implementation, then it may be necessary to treat these differences as different program models. Tutor benefits identifies whether the tutors receive benefits, which impact their total cost. When school-based staff are tutors, the benefits are always included. When tutors are professional tutors employed by the provider, the tutor benefits field will influence the national and local prices of tutors during the pricing phase of the analysis. Section 2 is simply the per pupil price charged to schools. Programs that do not charge per pupil should calculate the per pupil amount charged to schools based on the implementation being analyzed. This field is used to calculate total per pupil costs from the perspective of the schools. Section 3 is called Impact Evaluation. The Impact Evaluation section is used to calculate tutoring efficiency and cost effectiveness using rigorous impact evaluation data. Tutoring efficiency and how it is used to calculate cost effectiveness is outlined in a previous Accelerate report called Contextualizing the Impact of Tutoring on Student Learning, efficiency, cost effectiveness, and the known unknowns, and is defined in the appropriate output tabs. There are 3 use cases for the cost tool that are relevant for this section. For a user conducting a contemporaneous cost analysis as part of an impact evaluation, input the impact estimates from the well-designed RCT or rigorous quasi-experimental design that generates a causal estimate of program impact once the evaluation is complete. For a user conducting a retrospective cost analysis of a program that was previously evaluated, input the impact estimate from the prior evaluation that was based on a well-designed RCT or rigorous quasi-experimental design. For a user conducting a cost analysis without calculating cost effectiveness, simply leave this section blank. The impact estimate should be input in standard deviations as a standardized way to report impact. This is used to calculate tutoring efficiency. Subject and grades served are essential components of calculating tutor efficiency in order to normalize impact based on the subject and grades being served. If total dosage, impact estimate, subject and grades served are all completed, tutoring efficiency and cost effectiveness will start to calculate. The final section of this tab is the scenario planning parameters. This section informs program planning by enabling the consideration of a range of potential costs for future implementations based on variations in total cost, tutor cost, and training and support costs. Providers may use this section to introduce uncertainties into their cost analyses as they project the cost of future implementations. For example, what if we are wrong about how much the tutors will cost? We can input 20% to see how a 20% variation in tutoring costs impacts the total cost of the program. The user may input whatever percentages they want, depending on how narrow or wide they want the range of costs to be. If scenario planning is not part of the analysis, this section may be left blank. The Define and Price Ingredients tab is where cost drivers are identified, described, quantified, and priced. The inputs on this tab will be the core of the cost analysis. There is a standardized list that contains ingredients common to tutoring programs. There are also other options to allow for inclusion of ingredients not already listed. The ingredients list is broken into 5 categories. These categories are used to break down costs by category in the output section. First, we will describe in detail each of the ingredients. This should include information about who the personnel are, how much time they spend engaged in tutoring activities, and the quantities necessary to implement the program. These descriptions will be used to categorize, apply units, and quantify ingredients. They should be sufficiently detailed that someone not intimately familiar with the program could understand what the ingredient is and how much of it is needed to implement the program. If multiple tutor types are used in the program, please describe the different types and how many of each type are used in the description field. For example, if the program uses both paraprofessionals and teachers, describe them separately on 2 different lines, including how many of each type. Since training and support is separated from delivery, it is important to describe the time tutors spend doing training and support activities separately from their other work. This allows training and support costs to be compared to delivery costs in the output section. Some roles will require interviews with school personnel to describe properly. Examples include school-based IT supports, principal and teacher time, and school-based site leads. After describing the ingredients in detail, it is time to start pricing the ingredients. Pricing the ingredients requires 5 steps. First, we apply a category to each ingredient. The category is used to populate national and local prices when available. There are 26 categories in the drop-down menu. For each ingredient, choose the category that is the best match. Once a category is selected, the national and local price will populate when available. There are several tutor types available to choose from. These include professional tutors who are paid hourly or by salary, assistant teachers, which is the role most similar to a paraprofessional, also paid hourly or by salary, volunteers, college students and peer tutors, as well as a variety of other school-based staff who may serve as tutors. There are categories for computers and several types of facilities, classrooms, meeting rooms, and computer labs. Each of these are priced hourly and include standardized prices that will populate automatically. If there is not a good match, then choose other role/category. Items without standard prices, like travel reimbursements or curricular materials, should use this category. Next is the unit field. This is not a field used for calculations in the Output tab, but it defines the unit that is being quantified. For example, an employee paid hourly will have the unit hours that should be quantified in terms of hours, while an employee who is paid by salary should be quantified in terms of FTEs. Computers and facilities are priced hourly. Quantities describe how many of a certain ingredient is necessary to implement the program. Examples include the number of software licenses that need to be purchased for the program. Fixed costs are a one-time cost, such as renting a training facility. After the selection of the unit of measure, input the quantity of ingredients. For fixed costs, the quantity will always be 1. For quantities, it will be the number of units purchased. Hours and FTEs are often more complex. A detailed breakdown of quantifying hours and FTEs is available on page 23 of the report, which is available on the Accelerate website. When quantifying hours, it is the number of hours an ingredient is needed, such as the number of hours students spend on computers, the number of hours the program uses a classroom, or the total number of hours tutors spend tutoring, if they are paid hourly. FTEs is the total number of FTEs required to implement the program. This may be fractional, such as the time an IT specialist spends supporting the program, or it may be more than one, such as when there are multiple tutors in the program. Next, identify the actual price of each ingredient. National and local prices will have already populated. Sometimes, instead of a price, the national or local price will say, "We'll use actual." In these cases, when the actual price is input, it will update the national or local price to match. Actual prices should be based on actual expenditures for the implementation being analyzed. For ingredients like computers or facilities, which are challenging and time-consuming to price with accuracy and are typically a small fraction of the total costs, it is encouraged to use the standardized national and local price as the actual price. At this stage, the cost to society will be calculating accurately on the Outputs tab using all 3 types of pricing. The final step in pricing is identifying if the cost of the ingredient is borne by the school beyond the fee being paid by the school. Identifying which ingredients are paid for by the school exclusive of the fee allows for the calculation of total cost of the program from the perspective of the school. A few examples include: if paraprofessionals employed by the school are tutors, this ingredient is paid by the school, even beyond any fees paid by the school. They pay the fee, let's say $1,000 per pupil, but they also have to pay the paraprofessionals. Or, the time of teachers meeting with tutors or principals coordinating the program are also costs borne by the school beyond any fees paid. If tutors are paid by the provider, then this would be an example of costs not paid by the school. Or, if materials are included in the fee paid, that is another example of a cost not paid by the school. The school pays their $1,000 per pupil, and the materials are included. But if the school has to purchase materials separately from the fee, that is a cost paid by the school. After this is completed for each ingredient, the Output tabs are ready for review. Accelerate's Cost tool automatically calculates 3 types of summative outputs on 3 different tabs: Summary Costs, Cost Metrics, and Cost Planning Scenarios. On the Summary Costs tab, national, local, and actual pricing are compared. Cost to school and cost to society are compared using each pricing type, and the relative costs of each ingredient category are visible. On the Cost Metrics tab, 3 cost-related metrics are calculated: tutoring efficiency, and cost effectiveness. Each of these are key metrics for cross-program comparisons. Remember that these metrics are only calculated if tutoring efficiency information is provided, which includes dosage, grade served, subject, and impact estimates. Tutoring efficiency does not take into account price, so it will be the same regardless of perspective or pricing type. More detailed definitions of each metric are included in the notes below the table. On the Cost Planning Scenarios tab, the tool includes 3 scenarios to support prospective program planning. For each scenario, there is a range of potential costs based on inputs from the Implementation Details tab. That brings us to the end of the tool. We hope this tutorial has been helpful in understanding how the tool works. For a more detailed guide, please reference the report. You may also reach out to Accelerate to learn about other support opportunities, including office hours, Q&A sessions, or one-on-one support. Thanks for listening. Thanks for using the tool. And I'll see you next time.